Hello, Tracy Jones here. We are now going to cover hand tool safety. You will receive information on proper use and care and safe operation of hammers, files, wrenches, screwdrivers, chisels, punches, and various other hand tools. Here are some general shop safety rules for the precision machining shop. Eye protection is required at all times in the shop area. Remove loose clothing, watches, rings, and ties. No long sleeve shirts are allowed in the shop. All horseplay is to cease in the shop area. Before operating any machine, you must pass a test of safety with that machine of 100%. Do not operate any machine when the instructor is not in the shop. When working with another student, only one should operate the machine controls. Do not lean or sit on any machine. Do not talk to others when they are operating a machine. Get first aid immediately for any injury, and report all injuries to your instructor. Put all tools away when not in use. Do not leave tools or work on the machine table or on the machine itself, even if the machine is not running. Vibrations could cause the tools to fall and end up in an improper position. If you are in doubt about anything, ask your instructor. Clean up all spilled liquids immediately. They are slipping hazards. Keep all floors free of oil, grease, and any other kind of liquid. Do not try to make any repairs of equipment yourself. Report them to your instructor. All observers should stay out of the machine area while the machine is in operation. In case of fire, follow the posted signs to leave the building immediately, but walk. Do not run. In case of a tornado drill or tornado siren, proceed to the correct location following your instructor's instructions. All oily rags should be put in the proper waste containers. If you need help, ask your instructor. When lifting heavy objects, lift with your legs. Keep your back as straight as possible. If you do not know how to lift something or need help, ask your instructor. Do not touch any moving objects or any part of the machine that is moving. This includes belts, pulleys, chucks, cutters, parts, wheels, anything that is rotating. Do not touch it. Get your instructor's permission before leaving a shop area. We need to know where you are at all times for safety reasons. Use special safety equipment when required. When in doubt, ask your instructor. Machines are only as safe as the person using them. Machines do not think and are tougher than you are. You must think if this job is to be accident-free. You have a brain. The machine does not. You have to think for you and the machine. The first tool we will cover are the hammers. There are various types of hammers. Each have their own use. Each of them have their own characteristics, and each of them have their own little set of rules that you need to follow. This is a standard steel ball peen hammer. has a wooden handle and a cast steel head. One end is the ball shape, and the other is what they call a peening head, which is a round, flat head, has a slight convex surface here on the end, and then a complete ball radius on the other end. One of the things you want to make sure of with this tool is that the edges don't have burrs on them. You also want to make sure that the striking surfaces are smooth and clean. These tools are fine for chisels, punches, things like this. You want to avoid striking anything that can chip and have pieces of material fly off. Even if the right tools are used, items can still fly through the air. So you want to make sure you have your safety glasses on. There again, safety glasses are the most important part to start with in a safe shop environment. We also have what is a soft-faced hammer. This has a fiberglass shank to a heavy rubber-covered handle. It's real good grip, real easy to hold on to. Has a large head. This one is about 2 inches in diameter. The ends are replaceable. They can be unscrewed and new ones put in. They are a soft face. They will not mar anything that is struck. So that gives them a kind of a protection against harming anything that you strike with this hammer. One of the things that you must be aware with this hammer is that these tips are soft. Different colors are different hardnesses. But these hammers have a tendency to want to bounce. These heads are soft, so when you strike a hard item, they have a tendency to want to bounce back. So when they strike, they can bounce up. So be aware that that can happen. To avoid that happening, you can use what are called dead blow hammers. This is a cast composite hammer. Inside, from the handle up to the head, is solid steel, and it is covered with a thick coating of plastic. The head itself is a soft plastic, so it will not mar whatever you strike with it. But this one, unlike the other soft face hammer you were shown, is called a dead blow hammer. Inside this head is a tube, basically, and it is full of lead shot, little small lead pellets. And what this does for this hammer is, as the hammer comes up and you bring it down to strike, as it comes down, the material inside, the lead shot, will shift positions to this top end because of the force exerting going forward. When the hammer strikes the object, the lead shifts in and catches down here at the bottom, and what that does is that keeps it from bouncing. So as it comes down, the weight shifts and the hammer will not bounce back. Creates a very safe use. These are not real good for punches and for chisels, simply for the fact that the faces are soft and they can absorb quite a bit of the impact and will not mark your parts as well as a harder faced hammer. Sometimes you will be required to have a non-marking face. This is a type of ball peen hammer. Has a steel handle. This was shop made, and the head is a ball peen shape, but it is made of brass. This comes into, there are times when you may have to have a non-sparking surface. There are basically brass, bronze, and lead hammers are used for this instant. If you are in a situation where there are flammable gases or flammable liquids and you are striking a steel part with a steel-headed hammer, a spark could occur. Well, this is not always acceptable. So you would want a non-sparking material. So being brass, if you struck a metal object and a piece of the object were to chip off, it could not spark because of the brass hammer. So to avoid any sparks, you would use a brass hammer. There are also hammers made of wood. There are hammers made of aluminum. Every hammer has a different use. If you are not sure of its use or what hammer you should use for a specific job, see your instructor or use reference material to find which tool is best for the job at hand. Always remember, the correct tool will make the job safer and more productive. We will now cover the safety of files. A file is a hand tool that is very important in a machine shop. It is used to deburr and smooth parts. It can be used to shape and form different areas of pieces and components. It can be used to fit parts together. It's a very important and very useful tool. But we also must take in mind safety. First thing, always make sure you have your safety glasses on, because this tool is going to remove metal. The way a file works, it is a hardened piece of material, and it has a series of grooves in the file itself, and as the file is pushed against the part, it removes material from the piece. Files are listed by shape, by length, and by the cut being the spacing between the teeth. What we're going to cover here is just some of the basic safety aspects of it. One of the first priorities of a file is that it has a handle. A standard file comes from the factory just like you see it here. Okay, you have at this end what is called the tang of the file. Now if you notice, it is a little bit, the coloring is a little bit different than the body of the file. That is because this piece has been annealed, because the file itself is extremely hard. They anneal or soften this end of the piece so that it is not as likely to break. This is where your hand's going to go to hold the file to use it. You want to make sure you have a secure handle. If you notice, this end is very pointed. It can run into your hand and cause serious damage. So you want to make sure you have a secure handle. Some handles are made of wood, some are made of plastic, but you want to make sure that you have a secure handle to go in like so, and make sure that it's in there securely. There are different types of handles and different sizes of handles for the size of file that you'll be using. This happens to be what is called a wire-wrapped wooden handle, and it just gives more support to the end of the wood here where it is thinner. Here's another file, different size handle, still wire wrapped, and this is a triangle file. Notice the triangular shape. Files are flat, and they are, like I said, they are used to remove metal. One of the key things you want to make sure of is that they are clean. As you use these files, the material that you are removing will sometimes stay in the grooves of the file. In that case, you want to make sure that you clean it. And to clean it, you'll use what's called a file card. It looks like a very short bristled wire brush. And that will keep the file clean and make it cut a lot easier with a lot less force. Files only cut in the forward stroke. Do not drag the file backwards. That can cause excessive wear and shorten the life of your file. Even though it is flat, do not use this tool as a pry bar. It is extremely hard, which makes it extremely brittle, which it can snap and break off and send pieces flying and can cause injury. Do not pry or force this tool in any way. You will cover later on in the material, you will cover more information about the shape and types of files there are, how to select the proper file, and how to properly use the file. What we've covered here is just some of the basics of the safe operations of this tool. Wrenches are important tools in the machine shop, and here you see 4 various types of wrenches. You see a combination wrench, an adjustable wrench, a single Allen wrench, and a spanner wrench. Each one has their specific purposes, and each has its specific use. This is a common combination wrench. It is a specific size that will be marked on the body. On one end, it is a boxed end wrench. Now this is a wrench that is used for a hex key or a hex head bolt. You have a closed end on one end, and you have an open end on the other. You want to make sure that when you use these and you go to turn the bolt or whatever hex head you're using, you want to make sure that the wrench fits properly, that it is not too loose, so that it's less likely to slip off. If at all possible, the boxed end or closed end portion is the best one to use because you have more support. This encompasses the entire head of the bolt, where this end only touches 2 sides and has an open end and can slip off. With all wrenches, it is always better if you can pull the wrench towards you to tighten or to loosen the object, as you have a lot more control, less likely to slip and your hand come off of the wrench and strike an object other than what you're working on. You also want to make sure that the body as you handle it is free of grease and burrs and oil, because you do not want your hand there again to slip off. Unlike a combination wrench that has a specific size, an adjustable wrench can be adjusted to fit many different size hex head bolts. You simply adjust the screw and it brings the jaws closer together or farther apart. Now these wrenches are good in that you can have one wrench and use it on multiple sized bolts or nuts. One of the bad parts is if you do not keep it adjusted properly and keep the jaws close to the size and close in contact with the part, you can round off the bolt heads, rendering the bolts either removable or where they will have to be replaced. Like other wrenches, make sure they are free and clean and free of burrs, so you do not cut your hand. There again, pulling it towards you to tighten or pulling it towards you to loosen it is always better. Some bolts or screws have a head that has a hexagonal pocket inside that is used to turn the bolt. This is a long-handled L-shaped hex wrench or hex key or Allen wrench. They're called by many names, but they are a hardened steel tool used to drive socket head screws, Allen head set screws, anything that has a recessed Allen hex-shaped head. They also come in not just individual, but in a set. This is a set with various sizes that you can open to whatever size that you need. One of the big items you always need to watch with on an Allen wrench, on either an individual or the set, is the end of the stem itself, where it comes in contact with the bolt. They will become wore. They can become flattened out, rounded off, burred. They may need to be ground back till you have a good, clean, flat surface where you get a good, solid connection with the bolt or screw itself. One of the things with these multiple sets is they do unfold, so be careful as you are tightening or loosening apart, as they can open and they can slip. One of the advantages is you can have multiple sizes in a small area and they're easier to store. The last wrench I want to cover is called a spanner. Now in England they call most wrenches spanners, but in the US we call this a spanner. It is generally used for a large nut or a screw-on faceplate, and what it does is, as opposed to having a square head or a slot or a hex, there will be two holes in the face of the nut, basically, that these two pins that you can see go into so it can be turned. You will see these a lot on grinders, with grinding wheels, because because of limited spacing, they don't have a lot of room. Plus, you would have to have a very large hex head, which means an extremely large wrench. These type wrenches avoid that. One of the main things you want to watch for is burrs on the pins, or wear on the pins that are undersized, that can misshape the holes that they go into on the bolt itself. Sometimes you'll also want to watch right here at the bottom of this crest right here. A lot of times if the wrench will crack, this is where they will crack. So make sure, because you don't want to use a cracked wrench, because if it slips as you're tightening it up, it can slip and cause damage to your hands. You also want to make sure on the body of the wrench that there are no burrs and that it's free of oil and grease, so you can have a good solid grip on the tool. One of the most commonly misused hand tools is the common screwdriver. This is used to turn, this is a slotted flat tip screwdriver. It's used to turn slotted screws, and that's all that it is used for. It is not a pry bar. It is not a chisel. You want to make sure that the handle is free of burrs so that you do not cut your hand while rotating it. You want to make sure that the tip is square, clean of burrs, and flat. They can be reshaped if they become broken or misshapen. You can look up reference material about how to do that, to shape it. But remember, avoid holding the item in your hand while you're turning it with a screwdriver, as if the screwdriver slips, you can stab yourself in the hand. It has happened more than once. Now, this is a chisel. This is a flat tipped chisel that has been ground to use to cut metal. It is struck with a hammer at the head to shear or cut metal. So do not use a screwdriver for a chisel. You can use a chisel for that. Another tool you can use with a hammer is a center punch. Basically, you have center punches and prick punches. Prick punches are ground on the tip to a 60-degree included angle to a sharper point to start a punch to drill a hole, and is followed up by a center punch which has a 90-degree included angle. There again, it is struck with a hammer, generally a ball peen hammer. Make sure that the head is not burred. Make sure that the tip is ground correctly, and make sure you wear safety glasses like with any other tool, especially when you're dealing with a striking tool.